It's an outrage. You have all over this planet people starving, children dying unnecessarily, people working incredible hours, and then you have the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 99%. This is the year 2024. We should not have that kind of massive global inequality. And in my country, richest country on earth, you got 3 people who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. This should be something that all over the world people are saying, this is not acceptable. We can do a lot better.
Those individuals, of course, Senator, will say that they create wealth, they create jobs, industry, great companies.
That's what they will say. But the reality is, obviously, it's the people who do the work create the wealth. And in many cases, these people, A, started off wealthy, with wealthy families. Number 2, take advantage of massive government tax breaks. We have a situation in the United States, for example, where you have billionaires who pay less in effective tax rates than do cab drivers or nurses.
So is the answer then progressive taxation? I think you advocate for 50% on earnings over 50,000, 33% on inheritance tax, 33% on interest on bank accounts. But we've pretty much got that here. And people will tell you in Ireland, this is not a paradise.
Well, there are no paradises on earth, but the idea that you have billionaires not only not paying their fair share of taxes in a given country, but stashing what amounts to trillions of dollars in tax havens all over the world is outrageous. So what we need is the global community to come together and to tell these oligarchs that we cannot tolerate their greed any longer. We need a global economy that works for all, not just the few.
And talking about taxation, if that is obviously the solution, we in the 1980s here in Ireland, we had very high taxation, but we also had very high unemployment. And no one here, we never want to revisit those times.
Well, look, I think you can create a system, and I'm not all that familiar with Ireland, but a global system where you deal with inequality, where you have a fair tax system, and where you're putting money into the economy and creating decent paying jobs.
In your country at the moment, like here, you are dealing with a massive immigration issue, even, you know, a leading man at the moment being impeached. Is it the case now, Senator, that America is no longer the shining city on the hill where everyone is welcome?
Well, I don't think it's either or. In the United States today, to be honest, we have many very serious problems. It's not only massive income and wealth inequality. We, like the rest of the world, are attempting to deal with the existential threat of climate change. We have a major housing crisis. Unlike many other industrialized countries, our healthcare system is basically dysfunctional, very expensive, not producing a whole lot for people. Education, very serious issue. So we got a lot of problems. We have historically, my father came from Poland into the United States. My wife's family came from Ireland into the United States. And we have historically welcomed people. Right now, because of the incredible kinds of violence we're seeing in Latin America, as well as climate change, you're seeing a real uptick of the number of people who want to come into the country. So we need to get a handle and come up with an immigration system that is humane and that is fair.
And what about, we have the same situation here in Ireland, but when you've got, I suppose, people whose basic rights like housing, if they are having issues with having a house for themselves and their family, I suppose trying to balance that with the human rights of people trying to come in, what would you say to Irish people who say, Ireland is just full?
No, well, look, again, I'm not going to get involved in the Irish politics here or the economy. But I can tell you that in the United States, we have a massive worker shortage. We're trying to rebuild our infrastructure. We need a whole lot of workers to do that. We need more teachers. We need more doctors. We need more construction workers. So what we need is a sensible immigration policy. And in order to make that policy work, among other things, you've got to deal with the housing issue. All right? You need to build housing for people who have long been in this country. In our country, as well as for immigrants.
I'm sitting here in front of you, super sharp, you are looking great. You're 81, Joe Biden's 81.
I'm 82, actually, but who's counting?
Donald Trump is 77. What's going on in America?
Well, I think there are a variety of reasons, and you can't generalize. bottom line on this issue of age, I think it is a fair question to ask. But the question is not just age. The question is the totality of the person. What does the person stand for? I mean, I see a lot of young people, often very, very right-wing Republicans, young people saying, we need a generational change. What? To do what? To give more tax breaks to billionaires, to ignore climate change, to turn your backs on poor people? That's the kind of generational change we need? I don't think so. So I think when we look at age and politics, look at the totality of what people are doing. The truth of the matter is while I do not agree by any means with everything that Biden has done, he has a pretty good record. We have put a whole lot of money into transforming our energy system in order to deal with climate. Our roads and our bridges have been crumbling for years. We put more money into that than ever before. We passed major legislation to help us get out of the economic downturn as a result of COVID. Very significant. We're making some progress in a number of areas. Is Biden perfect? No, but look at the totality of what he's doing, not just his age.
You've always had a massive following amongst young people, and you still have. But in terms of the age question, is there a danger that perhaps you could lose some of those young people?
Well, look, what you want is a new generation of young progressive people. And I have to tell you, what is not widely reported is in the United States, we are seeing just that. If you go to I was in the House of Representatives, 435 members, and when I was there was scarcely any young progressive people. Now there are dozens and dozens from all over this country, often young people of color. So we have made extraordinary progress in developing a progressive movement, which is in fact not electing not only to Congress, but to school boards, the city councils, the mayors' positions all over the country.
There's a real prospect that Donald Trump could once again become president. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. There is. And I will work as hard as I can to prevent that from happening. I think getting back to a point you raised earlier, in countries all over the world, and certainly in the United States, people are feeling very anxious, and they are hurting. They're in pain, in economic pain. I'll give you an example. In the United States of America, people don't know this, despite huge increases of technology and worker productivity, the real inflation accounted for wages for the average American worker is lower today than 50 years ago. Can you believe that? 50 years ago, there were no computers. There were no iPhones. There weren't, you didn't have that kind of productivity. Workers are looking all over the world, all over the country. They're saying, what's going on? Is government listening to the fact that I can't afford healthcare, can't afford education, that I'm paying too much in rent? Who is caring about me? And Trump comes along and said, in so many words, democracy is failing. All this government stuff really isn't working. You need a strong guy. I'm going to take care of it. I'll deal with the swamp. I'll deal with the problems which are really immigration or gay rights. Those are the real problems. And the challenge that we face is this. Real change is going to come. The question is, what will that change be? Will it be a change that divides people based on where they were born, the color of their skin, their sexual orientation? Or it will be a change that says we're going to take on the bloody oligarchs who have so much damn power right now, so much wealth, and create a society and a government that works for all. That's the challenge that we face.
How do you explain, though, Senator, so many people who are less well off in your country voted and will probably vote again for Donald Trump?
I'll tell you exactly why. Because they are looking at the government, they're looking at the Democratic Party and saying, I can't afford health care. My kid can't afford to go to college. Everything being equal, my daughter is going to have a lower standard of living than I do. What are you doing for me? You're not doing really much. Trump is coming along. He is an atypical politician. He wants to get rid of all of that stuff. Why not? Maybe I think he's a little crazy. Maybe I don't agree with him on this, but at least not part of the old-fashioned political establishment. So that has an appeal. Bottom line here is the way to beat Trump is to say, yeah, you want change, we're going to give you change. But it's not based on racism, it's not based on xenophobia. It's a change that says we're going to create an economy for you, not just for billionaires.
Just this week, you were one of 3 Democratic senators who voted against the aid package to Israel. I know you feel very strongly about Gaza. Why?
What's going on there, and it's, I don't think, reported adequately in the United States, is one of the great humanitarian disasters in modern history. So we're looking at an area in Gaza of a little over 2 million people You're talking about 27,000 people already been killed, almost 70,000 who have been injured. You're talking about 1.8 million, 80% of the people displaced. Can you imagine? That's half the size of Ireland. That half the people just yanked out of their homes, put on the road. They don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have medical supplies, they don't have fuel. And now what you're looking at, because of the restrictions on the border, food getting in, plus the bombardments, children by the hundreds of thousands are starving to death. Now, who cannot be upset about this? So my own view from day one is Hamas is a jihadist, disgusting terrorist organization that started this war by killing 1,200 innocent people, taking 200 people hostage. Israel has a right to defend itself, but it does not have a right to go to war against the entire Palestinian people, including 2/3 of the people who are dead are women and children. So I have been very upset that the United States Congress is prepared to give Netanyahu and his right-wing government another $10 billion in order to continue this war. That is, to me, beyond belief.
Have you tried to use your influence, Senator, with the Biden White House?
Yes, of course I am. And we're going to continue to do that.
Are you disappointed?
Yes. Look, Joe Biden is an old friend of mine. I've known him for many years. We've worked together on some, I think, very successful projects. But on this issue, he's wrong. Very wrong.
Finally, you're known for being such a serious politician, strong views on so many issues, and yet you often become known for memes and mittens. What do you think of that?
Weird. Yes, I went to Biden's inauguration and I was sitting there trying to stay warm and suddenly it became a world-famous meme.
And finally, your wife Jane comes from Ireland a couple of generations back. Is she still trying to find out exactly where she's from? O'Meara, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, she is a very proud person of Irish descent. She spends a lot of time on Ancestry, trying to find her roots. She's been to Ireland many times, part of I Love New York, Ireland program. Yeah.
Well, we're delighted that both you and she are here today, and thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Senator.